Sporting Journal Radio, presented by Onyx.
All right, well, I've known my next guest for a number of years now, first working in tourism in Devil's Lake and now creating his own content, doing some filming and photography, and also working with Spypoint. It's Tanner Cherney, and he joins us here on the show right now. Tanner, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Brett. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. It's good to have you on the show. If I had you on the show before, I'm trying to remember. I feel like I had you on the show, but I don't know if I actually have.
I think you have. It's probably been a few years now. It's probably back in my former
Lake
role when I was working up in Devil's Lake in the tourism. I think we were talking some fishing or waterfall hunting the last time. So
Sure.
I believe I have, but it's been a few years.
I thought so. I mean, we talk pretty regularly, so sometimes this is our 470th show. So sometimes I forget who I've had on, and we have usually 4 guests per show. So that's a lot of guests that we've had on the show. So I forget sometimes. So I apologize, but glad to have you back. You're from Devil's Lake originally, right?
I am born and raised in Devil's Lake. Kind of lived there all my life, except for when I moved out for college for a few years and came back because it's what a wonderful place to live with. You're looking for a place to work, start your life, and you've got the outdoors right out your backyard. So lived there, and then I actually made the move down here to Bismarck about 2.5 years ago, and have been able to position myself down here. It's the state of North Dakota is wonderful with so many different opportunities from fishing to waterfowl hunting to archery hunting, that this was just a good place to kind of call home for good and be more, adaptable, where the Badlands are a couple hours away, and Devil's Lake's a couple hours away, Sakakawea, Oahe, everything's within a couple hour drive. So for an outdoorsman like me, it's the perfect place to be.
I miss North Dakota, and I'm not going to say anything bad about Fargo, but that's where I lived, and I lived there for about 12 years, and I loved living in North Dakota because of those outdoor opportunities. Now, living in Fargo isn't exactly the best if you like to hunt and fish, because you generally have to drive a little bit to get to some of those good opportunities, but they're not far, and having those good old resident hunting licenses in North Dakota is always kind of nice, because you get to hunt a little bit more than you do when you're a non-resident. And I'll tell you what, like Devil's Lake, unbelievable area. Fishing, of course, world class, and the waterfowl hunting is unbelievable there. But Bismarck, when I left Fargo before I moved back to Minnesota, I considered moving out to Bismarck. In fact, I interviewed at a TV station out there to maybe do some TV out there, and that was what I talked to a few people. They're like, man, if you like to hunt and fish, Bismarck is one of the best spots, because you got the river there and waterfowl, you got pheasant hunting, you got Sharpie hunting, so many opportunities. And then the Badlands. I mean, how can you not love the Badlands? I got to bow hunt out there for a number of years, and I fell in love with the place, became one of my favorite areas on the planet to visit. And being in Bismarck, you kind of have it all. You can go anywhere right in the middle of the state there and have opportunities. But when I was doing that, Tanner, that was like right at the oil boom, when the patch was exploding, and people that were working in the patch, they couldn't find places to live. So Bismarck, it was even hard to find a place to live in Bismarck because of the oil boom back then. I'm sure it's subsided now since you've moved out there, but it was hard to find even find a place to live when I was looking out there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was crazy when things were booming, when everything took off up in that part of the state. And I know from a few friends of mine that had moved down here prior to when I did, and it was tough going. But no, right now things have, I'd say, subsided a little bit, and definitely became a little more relaxed and available for properties and housing. So no, it's I agree. It's a great place to live here, and you have everything within a couple hours of a drive time from the town of Bismarck.
Now, your bow hunting season is open there in North Dakota. Ours opens up in another week here in Minnesota. I liked that early bow hunting opportunity out in North Dakota. I used to go to Western North Dakota right away for the opener, and sometimes it was late August, I believe, right around the beginning of September. It was always really hot, and I always watched more for rattlesnakes than I did for whitetails or muleys. But it was nice because you could get out there and try to get a velvet buck if you had your chance. Now, are you a bow hunter?
I am. I grew up, doing a lot of tree stand hunting and sitting on the edge of crop fields and CRP fields. And that's the one thing about North Dakota is it's a lot tougher than, say, Minnesota, for instance. We don't have a lot of trees and stuff, so you kind of got to adapt your style of archery hunting, whether it's, utilizing ground blinds and things like that. But as I got older and kind of got into college, I really got into more of the spot and stock. So I don't really spend a lot of time in a tree stand anymore. It's more out west in the Badlands, public land, spot and stock with mule deer. And I tell you what, you get to see some pretty crazy things out there, from the muleys, the whitetails, the elk, heck, running into the bighorn sheep, and yes, the rattlesnakes, like you mentioned. I was out there a couple of years ago with a buddy of mine, and it was a early October hunt, and it was one of those days where it started out probably 35, 40 degrees, and we rolled out of the ice castle, got out to our spot and glassed, and by the afternoon it's pushing 75. And that night I was walking a game trail back, and my buddy was probably 3 steps behind me, and I wasn't even really paying attention. I kind of was on the mission to get back to the vehicle, and all of a sudden he stops and kind of screams some profanity, and I'm like, what the heck? And I look back, and here between us was a rattlesnake coiled up on the trail, and I'm either had to have stepped on it or brushed it with my boots.
Jeez.
But again, it was cold enough that he wasn't active, but by the time I had went over him, he was on high alert. So yeah, it's definitely keeps you on edge out there.
I wanted to see one. I legit wanted to see one, but I wanted to see one at a safe distance, and I wanted to get a picture of one. And I know we saw when we were driving through the Badlands one time, or the park out there, Theodore Roosevelt National Park, and we were in a Jeep, and we ended up seeing one coiled up on the side of the road as we drove through. But it was at that point, it's like being in a drive-through zoo or something. You're like, oh, hey, there's a rattlesnake. Huh, see, I'm going to stay in the car. This is good. But I'll tell you what, Dan showed that picture of that whitetail, and that's a buck I shot out there in the Badlands one year. And you talk about stand hunting versus spot and stalk, and I got into stalking a few muleys, and I'll tell you what, I never got close enough to shoot. Well, I take that back. I did stalk a big one. He was with about 9 does, and they were in this little grove, this little tiny grove on this big hillside, and I came over the top of another hill, and I could see them all laying in there. And the wind was perfect. So I was like, all right, I can sneak around behind them, and I can creep up over the hill that's right on their backside. I'll have the wind in my favor. And I got within about 40 yards of them, and they got a little weird, and they all kind of stood up, and they were looking up the hill at me, and like half of them had their heads behind trees. So I couldn't tell which one was the buck, and which I could have shot him, and then all of a sudden they took off running. I had the buck centered up right in front of me, and if I would have known it was him, I could have shot him, but I couldn't see the head, so I couldn't tell which deer it was. But I did have a stand on the Little Missouri River, and my buddy had some property out there, and I shot that 5x5 whitetail along the river there, and it was, I've told the story before on the show. I don't need to get into that story, but a couple years later, it was the only tree on the river, Tanner. And it was a couple years later, my buddy sent me a picture of that tree in my stand laying on the ground. The beavers had gotten to it. So it was the only tree on the river. It's gone now.
So it was perfect timing that you were able to do it and seal the deal when you did.
I did, and it was 3 bucks that came through, just this goofy little tiny guy, and then just a massive giant, and then one in the middle, and I ended up shooting that 10-pointer. That was, it ended up being like a 136 or something, nothing too special, but I mean, it was a nice deer. He was nice and tall. And
it's a good-looking deer, absolutely.
Yeah, I was happy with it. But the other one was like, I got to tell the story now. I shot 3 arrows at this buck, and when I hung the stand, there was a game trail, and I had ranged it when I hung the stand like a month earlier, and I thought I ranged it at 40 yards. So when I first took the shot, my arrow, he stopped broadside. I stopped him, and I drew back, and I shot, and my arrow went right over his back. Ping, 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 bounce. I can see it bouncing behind him. Oh. I'm like, are you kidding? He didn't move. He just stood there. And so I drew another arrow, and I shot, and just as I was releasing the arrow, he started to move, and I ended up hitting him a little high and a little back. And he just started walking. I mean, it was pretty obvious that he had been hit and hit pretty hard, but he started walking. And there's another deer hunting story that I won't go into this time, where I hit one high and back, and it took us a while to get to it, and coyotes had eaten half of it by the time we found it. In 4 hours, coyotes had eaten half of it. It's crazy. But so I stopped him again, and he just stopped and stared at me, and I drew back and double lunged him, and then he walked like 10 feet and fell over. Like, never once took off running. 3 arrows shot at him, never once took off running. But so that's my buck story from the Badlands.
I'm glad you got him. That just tells you that deer probably never saw too many humans out in that part of the area. And
not far from there, I did actually shoot a muley buck, and And that was from a stand too. Surprisingly, I wasn't expecting to see a muley down along the river, but out there you just never know. And then that was the one that ended up going. He only went about 200 yards, but we couldn't find him, and it took us 4 hours. We backed out and came back in, and coyotes had already eaten half of them by the time we got to him. 4 hours later, at 11 a.m., we got to him.
That is quick.
So it's a cool place out there. Anyway, part of the reason I want to bring up bow hunting, because you're working with Spypoint, of course, and trail cameras have changed the game. It's changed the way people bow hunt. Like, I don't even like to gun hunt anymore because bow hunting, it just gets you so much closer to the animals. It lets you observe them in their natural environments, in a natural setting. They're not running scared for their lives as people just wing lead through the trees or across the open prairie. But it also, I think one of the most important parts of trail cameras, and I know some people think they're controversial, some people think they're making it too easy, whatever. But what it does is it allows you to manage the game that you have on your property. I mean, obviously you're gonna have deer moving in and out, but it gives you a snapshot of what's in the area and can allow you to grow bigger bucks or shoot the right doe or cull deer, or, whatever you want to do. It gives you a chance to know what's out there, so you're not just shooting the first thing that walks in front of you.
Absolutely, yeah. So no, I've been working with Spypoint trail cameras, and the cell cam industry has just exploded. And the crazy cool thing about our cameras is the fact that like where I do actually rifle hunt is about 120 miles southwest of Bismarck, and for a guy working, it's not the easiest to always get down there and check SD cards or check cameras and move things around. And when you can literally go to the app on your phone, and wherever you're sitting, you can see what has come through in the last day or couple of days, and not have to worry about taking a full Saturday to go check trail cameras. It just changes the whole way you can hunt now. And like you said, the herd management thing about it, and being able to see your bucks that you have on the property, and all right, I've got a couple 3.5, 4.5-year-old deer. I do have a 5.5 or whatever it may be, and allows you during the season, because how many times have you been sitting in a blind or a tree stand and you're like, that looks like a good shooter, but if you knew that there was a bigger, healthier deer out there, you may hold out, and if you didn't know that, you may shoot that one. So it is a great way for quality deer management, being able to basically build up those herds. And I think trail cameras are probably one of the most I would equate it to like using binos or a spotting scope out in the western landscape when you're glassing for deer. This is your eyes in the woods when you're not always able to be out there and keeping an eye on what you have on your property.
Well, it's so important, if you do have a big buck, not to disturb him. So if you can stay out of the woods or stay out of his normal roaming territory or his bedding area, and just be able to check that camera remotely, you're going to be able to keep that buck around versus going in there and bumping him or bumping some of his does or whatever, and kicking him off the property.
Absolutely. And then, you get into the rut season and things start getting heated up, and you start to see more deer movement, and you might be like, hey, I need to take a couple of days off of work. I've noticed a lot more daytime activity.
Yeah.
And it's like, I need to get out there because seasons are changing and it's now or never. And yeah, so with Spypoint, we're very fortunate. We're one of the, we always like to say, when you purchase a camera from us, you never necessarily have to spend another dime to get photos, because we do give you 100 free photos every month per camera that you purchase. And you know what? It's one of those things. It's almost like, people always talk about Twitter and Facebook every morning. You get on your phone and it's your news, or you check things on there. Well, like for a guy like me, I get up every morning and I look at my trail cam feed and see what crossed the path here in the last 24 hours. And it gets you excited. And, it's one of those things. I think, the industry has just changed so much in the last 4 or 5 years, just like everything hunting and fishing has. And it's crazy to see where it's going.
I remember when I got my first Spypoint cell camera, and I was like, oh my, this is unbelievable. And I was literally checking the camera like every hour, because I got it set to send me pictures every hour or whatever, communicate with the device. Before that, I remember going out, and I think before I got that, where I had my camera was about a half-hour drive. So I'd have to drive all the way out there, and then I'd have to, I'd usually put on rubber boots and I'd spray down. I'd put on some camo just to walk out to the trail camera, because you don't want to, if you got to go out to your trail camera, you don't want to go charging in there anyway. You want to go in there in stealth mode like you're hunting. So you get all, Mission Impossible style. You walk back to your camera, and then you get the card, and then you look at the card and go, man, I got to sneak back out of here, drive back home, go in the house and plug this into my computer. So I'd definitely be breaking the law, speeding to get back home, because it's like Christmas morning when you get to look at those pictures, Tanner.
It really is. I mean, that's the best part, is seeing, okay, and it's half the time it's not even the deer you necessarily see in your camera. It's things that show up, whether it's, you have a mountain lion come through, or a raccoon, or whatever it may be. And, with our app, the one really cool thing is, I know you've probably have done this in many of your times going through SD cards, is how many times do you sit at the computer and you scroll for 20 minutes to go through 300 deer or doe photos just to find that one buck and then clear those out. Well, in our Spypoint app, you can go right to the buck filter and buck tracker, and basically it takes out any deer that doesn't have, through the AI built into it, that doesn't have antlers. So at the click of one button, your 5,000 photos that might be on that SD card are filtered down to just antlered buck photos. So it really is a time saver in that realm too.
That's amazing. That is nice. And do you have one that can just automatically delete pictures of swaying grass by any chance? Because that would be nice.
Oh, trust me, that, especially in the Dakotas here, you get yourself on the edge of a field and you got that sensitivity set a little too high. It'll take a lot of snapshots in the course of a day. I've experienced that myself.
That app is really handy because you can actually go into it and change some of the settings on the camera from home too, so you don't have to go out there to do that.
Yeah, you can go in and you can change you can have it set up so it sends you every other transmission that something comes by, it'll send you the previous photos. You might have your camera in a spot that doesn't have the greatest cell service, so you might just have it set to twice a day, once a day, whatever time it is. For when it sends you the transmissions of the previous photos stored on the card. You can go in and change your frequency, all of that settings remotely. So like you said, you're sitting at home, drinking your cup of coffee, enjoying a beverage in the evening, whatever it may be, and you're not having to go trudge through the woods or a sanctuary or a bedding area and disturb the deer, but yet you can take care of all of that stuff. And, you talk about battery life with running good batteries in there. It's amazing how far like a lithium ion battery will go on these trail cameras nowadays. But we also do have a couple different options with integrated solar panels into the trail cameras now. So you can get a lot longer battery life. So you can go out at the beginning of the season and conditions are right, you may never have to change a battery for quite some time.
The other thing I've always liked about those cell cameras is you can also see if somebody else is on your property, or if someone's driving down one of your trails or trespassing or whatever.
Absolutely. We came out with the Link Micro here a couple of years ago, and that is probably one of the smallest, most compact cell cams out there. And the fact that you could put that on a tree or a fence post and in the right spots, you would never even know that's there. So it is a great way to, keep track of whether it's trespassing or things like that, and security. And we've got a few guys I've talked to that actually, they use them for, obviously checking bear sites, but another way that it comes in handy is checking the camera before you go into a bear site for a sit in the evening, is just, for safety purposes, to make sure you're not trudging in on a bear that's hungry and sitting there waiting for you and your bear bait. So there's a lot of purposes, not just for deer hunting applications, that these cameras can provide for anyone looking to use them.
My buddy Barry Prawl, who guides bear hunters, he gets these little bears that hear the four-wheeler, coming, or side by side coming when he's going to go put fresh bait in, and they'll just be hanging out next to it for him, waiting for him. And he's had to punch him in the face when he's trying to dump bait into the barrel, because they'll just come up and try to grab. He's like, "Get out of here!" These little bears are almost like his pets sometimes, it seems like. But yeah, so these cameras? So you talked about 100 free photos. But you can actually buy some plans where you can get some unlimited photos, which I've done because it's pretty cheap to get unlimited photos.
It is. We've got all of our plans on our website for, anywhere from 250 photos a month, and it kind of staggers up to the unlimited plan. And then the new thing we came out with here a year ago is our Insiders Club, which is kind of like it's $99 a year to get into the Insiders Club, and then you get discounts on your photo transmission plans, accessories, online, free shipping. There's a lot of different advantages, exclusive content, and then we just actually launched here about 3 weeks ago, our grand giveaway for this year, for anyone that's in our Insiders Club, you're automatically entered to win, possibly have the chance at winning a 2021 Toyota Tundra Crew Max.
Nice.
And included in that is, it's going to be a cumulative prize over the next 6 months. It's going to move from different people throughout the United States, and they're going to all add different prizes into this giveaway. And at the end of February, we're going to draw one lucky winner from our Insiders Club membership to win the whole prize package. So kind of just another little nice incentive to be in that little group. But yeah, there's a lot of added features in the Insiders Club that are great, especially if you're running multiple cameras. You know, you're running 3 or 4 cameras and you've got plans on all of them. You actually are money ahead by doing that and getting the discount than buying an individual plan for each camera. And the cost savings is just, it's a good break even.
Where can we find Spypoint online and on social media?
So online, Facebook, it's going to be Spypoint Trail Cameras. Spypoint Camera on Instagram, and our website spypoint.com is going to have all of our social handles and everything right on there that you can access. And if you're looking for good content to see a lot of big deer, elk, things like that, hopefully these next couple months we're going to be pushing out. We got people sending us photos all the time, and I tell you what, if you're in content creation, there's no better place to be than in the trail cam industry, because there's endless amounts of photos at your disposal. That's
right. Can they send them to you or tag you, or how do they get them? How do they get you photos?
So you can tag us with you can either use our @Spypoint Camera brand handle on Instagram, but our main Spypoint hashtags are Spypoint Camera, Spypoint, and #YI Spypoint. The YI Spypoint's kind of the overarching brand that we're trying to establish over the next couple of years. So that's going to be the #1 hashtag that we're always looking for content to be tagged in.
Very cool. Tanner Cherney, appreciate the time. Good luck bow hunting, duck hunting, pheasant hunting, fishing, whatever else you're going to be doing this fall. And thanks for the time today on the show.
Thank you, Brett. Good luck to you this fall as well.
Hear more at sportingjournalradio.com or wherever you get podcasts. Devil's Lake is legendary, and this summer has been legendary for walleyes. Don't miss out. Call Haybale Heights Campground and Resort today to book one of their modern cabins on East Bay. The cabins are furnished with a full bathroom, kitchen, and all the amenities like high-speed internet, and are clean following CDC guidelines. Staying at Haybale Heights gives you full access to a private boat launch, fish cleaning station, and beach area. Learn more at haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com. Plan your trip to legendary Devil's Lake today.